You know what finally made me angry enough to figure this out? I'd bought a beautiful Japanese chisel, white steel number 2, paid good money for it, and within a week the edge was chipping. Little micro fractures right along the cutting edge. I thought I'd gotten a bad tool, so I bought another one. Same thing, chipped. And I couldn't understand it because I'd been sharpening tools for over 30 years. I knew what I was doing, or I thought I did. It wasn't until I spent some time studying how traditional Japanese craftsmen actually maintain their blades that I realized the problem wasn't the steel. It was me. I was sharpening Japanese tools exactly the way I'd always sharpened Western tools, and that approach was destroying the very thing that makes these blades special. Today I'm going to walk you through the specific mistakes most of us make, what to do instead, and why the difference matters more than you might think. Plus, stick around to the end because I'll show you a simple test you can do tonight to know whether your edge is truly sharp or just feels sharp. Let's get into it. Here's the thing about Japanese edge tools. They are not built the same way as Western tools, and that single fact changes everything about how you should sharpen them. Once I understood why they're constructed differently, every sharpening mistake I'd been making suddenly made perfect sense. And the fix was not harder. It was actually easier. But it required a completely different way of thinking about what sharpening actually is. So let me give you some background, because this is where it all clicked for me. Japanese blades, whether it's a chisel, a plane blade, or a marking knife, are not made from one solid piece of steel the way most Western tools are. They're laminated. There's a thin layer of very hard carbon steel called Hagane forge welded onto a thicker body of softer, more flexible iron called jigane. That hard steel layer is what forms the cutting edge. The soft iron behind it acts as a shock absorber and makes the tool easier to sharpen. This construction goes back centuries. Japanese blacksmiths developed it because they were working with tamahagane, a high carbon steel that could take an incredibly fine edge, but was also brittle on its own. By bonding it to soft iron, they got the best of both worlds, an edge that could be honed sharper than almost anything in the Western tradition, backed by a body that could absorb impact without cracking. Now here's why this matters for sharpening. That hard steel layer on a typical Japanese chisel might only be 1/8 of an inch thick, sometimes less. You're not grinding through a big monolithic chunk of tool steel the way you are with a Stanley or a Lie-Nielsen. You're honing a very thin, very hard layer. And that layer has specific requirements. It needs a specific type of stone. It needs consistent, flat contact. It needs attention on both sides of the blade. And it absolutely cannot tolerate the habits most of us developed sharpening Western tools. Let me show you exactly where things go wrong and what to do instead. The first mistake, and this is the one I see most often, is reaching for an oil stone. If you grew up sharpening Western chisels and plane irons, you probably have an India stone or an Arkansas stone sitting on your bench. Those stones work fine for Western tool steel. But Japanese high-carbon steel and oil stones are a bad combination. Oil stones cut too aggressively for that thin, hard steel layer. They leave deep scratches that become stress points, and those stress points are exactly where microchipping starts. That's what was happening to my chisels. I was creating the fractures myself every time I sharpened. The correct approach is water stones. Japanese craftsmen have used water stones for centuries, and there's a reason. Water stones use water as a lubricant instead of oil, and they produce a slurry as you work that contains loose abrasive particles. That slurry actually does a lot of the cutting, and it produces a much finer, more uniform scratch pattern than an oil stone. The progression matters too. You don't just grab one stone. A typical Japanese sharpening setup uses at least 3 grits. You start with something around 1,000 grit to establish the bevel and remove any damage. Then you move to a 3,000 or 4,000 grit stone to refine the scratch pattern. And you finish on an 8,000 or 10,000 grit stone to polish the edge. Each step is removing the scratches left by the previous stone and replacing them with finer ones. By the time you're done on that finishing stone, the scratch pattern is so fine that the edge is essentially polished. There are no stress risers, no weak points where a chip can start. The difference in edge retention is dramatic. I went from chipping within a day of sharpening to holding an edge through an entire project, just by switching from oil stones to a proper water stone progression. Now, here's the second mistake, and this is the one that surprised me the most. Most of us, when we sharpen, spend all our time on the bevel. We work the front of the blade, we check for a burr, we call it done. With Western tools, that approach is mostly fine. But with Japanese tools, the back of the blade is half the edge, literally half. And if you ignore it, you'll never get a truly sharp result. Japanese blades have a feature on the back called urasuki. If you flip over a Japanese chisel or plane blade and look at the back, you'll see that it's not flat. There's a shallow concavity ground into the steel during manufacturing. That hollow serves two purposes. First, it reduces the amount of surface area you have to flatten and polish. Second, it creates a narrow flat rim around the perimeter called uroshi. That rim is where the back of the edge actually lives. When you bring the bevel side and the back side together at the cutting edge, the quality of that meeting point determines how sharp the tool is. If the uroshi isn't dead flat and polished, the edge will never be clean. You'll feel a burr, you'll see tiny irregularities, and the tool will tear fibers instead of slicing them. The correct practice is to work the back on your finishing stone regularly. You lay the blade dead flat on the stone, press down on the edges, and take light passes until that rim is uniformly polished. You're not trying to remove the hollow. You want the hollow. You're just maintaining that flat rim. When I first started doing this, I was amazed at the difference. Same chisel, same bevel angle, but suddenly the edge was cleaner and lasted longer, because I was finally finishing both halves of the equation. By the way, if you are enjoying learning about these ancient methods, I put together something I think you will really appreciate. It is called Kenji's Workshop, and it is a collection of 100 ancient Eastern woodworking secrets for the modern craftsman. Techniques like the ones we are covering today, and a whole lot more. You can grab your copy by scanning the QR code on screen or just use the first link in the description. All right, let us keep going. The third mistake is one I was guilty of for years, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. Rocking the blade while sharpening. With Western tools, a lot of us developed a slight rocking motion because we were taught to use a figure-8 pattern, or we'd lift the handle slightly at the end of a stroke. On a Western bevel, which is usually ground to 25 degrees and then honed at 30, that rounding isn't ideal, but it's somewhat forgiving because the steel is relatively tough and the bevel is wide. On a Japanese blade, rocking is a disaster. Japanese tools are typically ground to a single bevel between 28 and 32 degrees, and that bevel needs to be dead flat. Not convex, not micro-beveled, flat. Here's why. Remember that thin layer of hard steel. If you round the bevel even slightly, you're changing the geometry of how that hard steel meets the back of the blade. Instead of a clean, crisp intersection, you get a rounded edge that feels sharp for about 5 minutes and then goes dull because there's no support behind the cutting edge. The hard steel is so thin that any convexity means the very tip of the edge is unsupported. The correct technique is to lock your wrists, set your angle, and push the blade straight up the stone in consistent, even strokes. No figure-8s, no rocking, no lifting at the end. Some Japanese craftsmen use a sharpening guide, but most do it freehand, with a very deliberate, disciplined motion. The key is consistency. Every stroke at the same angle, the same pressure, the same path. When I forced myself to stop rocking and just commit to flat, consistent strokes, the edge quality jumped immediately. I could see it in the shaving. Instead of a crumbly, broken curl, I was getting a continuous ribbon. Now the fourth mistake ties directly into the third one, and it's something most people don't think about at all. Sharpening on a dished stone, water stones wear. That's actually part of how they work. The surface breaks down and releases fresh, abrasive particles. But that means, after a few sharpening sessions, your stone isn't flat anymore. It's concave. It has a dish in the middle. And here's the problem. If you're trying to create a perfectly flat bevel on a stone that isn't flat, it's physically impossible. A hollow stone will round your bevel for you even if your technique is perfect. You can lock your wrists, hold a perfect angle, and the stone itself will betray you. Japanese craftsmen flatten their stones constantly. Some flatten before every single sharpening session. They use a flattening plate, which is typically a piece of thick plate glass with silicon carbide powder or a diamond lapping plate, or a dedicated Nagura stone designed for conditioning. You rub the stone across the flattening surface until it's dead flat. Check it with a straight edge, and only then do you start sharpening. I bought a diamond lapping plate about 4 years ago for around $40, and it completely changed my results. It takes maybe 2 minutes to flatten a stone. 2 minutes. And it's the difference between a flat bevel and a rounded one, which is the difference between an edge that performs and an edge that disappoints. Now let me pull all of this together with the insight that made everything click for me. Because Japanese blades are laminated, because that cutting edge is formed by a very thin layer of extremely hard steel, you are honing far less metal than you think. On a Western chisel, you're working the entire thickness of the blade at the bevel. On a Japanese chisel, you're only ever touching that thin, hard steel layer and a little bit of the soft iron behind it. The soft iron wears away quickly and easily. The hard steel takes a finer edge than any Western blade I've ever used. So done correctly, sharpening a Japanese tool is actually faster than sharpening a Western one. You're removing less material. You're working a thinner cross-section, and the result is sharper. The proof is in the numbers. In Japan, there are competitions called Kezuru-kai, where craftsmen compete to produce the thinnest, most perfect shaving with a hand plane. The winning shavings are measured at around 10 microns thick. To put that in perspective, a human hair is about 70 microns. A shaving at 10 microns means the cutting edge has no flaw, no chip, no irregularity deeper than 10 microns. That's the level of refinement these sharpening methods can achieve. You don't need to hit competition level in your shop, but knowing that this system can produce that result tells you something about how sound the method is. Let me share some patterns I've noticed over the years, things I used to do myself, that this tradition handles completely differently. The first pattern is treating all steel the same. Most of us grow up sharpening whatever's in front of us with whatever stone we have, using whatever technique we learned first. But Japanese high-carbon steel is not the same as Western chrome vanadium, or A2 or O1. It's harder, it's thinner, and it's bonded to a different material. Treating it the same way produces bad results, and then we blame the tool. The second pattern is skipping grits. I used to jump from a coarse stone straight to a fine stone because I was impatient. With Western steel, you can sometimes get away with that. With Japanese steel, skipping grits means you're trying to polish over deep scratches. Those scratches remain as stress points under the polished surface and the edge chips. The progression exists for a reason. The third pattern is ignoring the back of the blade entirely. In Western sharpening, flattening the back is something you do once when you first get the tool, and then you mostly forget about it. With Japanese tools, maintaining the urayoshi is an ongoing practice every time you sharpen. The fourth pattern is treating stone maintenance as optional. A dished stone is a ruined stone for these purposes. Most of us let our stones wear until there's an obvious valley and then maybe flatten them. Japanese practice says flatten before you sharpen, every single time. 2 minutes of prevention saves you from rounding every edge you touch. The good news is, once you see these patterns for what they are, the fix is straightforward. It's not about buying more tools or learning some secret technique. It's about respecting the design of the blade and adjusting your habits to match. Now for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning. Once you've sharpened using the correct method, you need a way to know whether your edge is actually as good as you think it is. Here are 2 tests you can do tonight in your shop. The first is the end grain test. Take a piece of softwood, white pine works, great, and set your freshly sharpened chisel or plane blade against the end grain. Push it forward with light, even pressure. If your edge is truly sharp, you'll get a clean, continuous, glossy shaving that curls without breaking. If the shaving crumbles or the surface looks torn or fuzzy, there's still a flaw in the edge. End grain is the hardest test for any cutting edge because the fibers are oriented directly against the blade. It exposes every imperfection. The second test is even more demanding. Take a single hair, hold it taut between your fingers, and bring the edge down onto it about halfway along the strand. A properly honed Japanese blade will slice cleanly through with almost no pressure. If it catches, deflects, or won't cut, the edge isn't there yet. This sounds extreme, but remember, these blades are designed to take an edge measured in microns. A hair is about 70 microns in diameter. If the edge can't handle that, it's not finished. I do both of these tests every time I sharpen now, and they've completely changed my standard. I used to think an edge was sharp when it felt sharp on my thumbnail. Now I know whether it's actually performing at the level the steel is capable of. One more thing before I let you go. I spent a long time gathering the best ancient Eastern woodworking methods I have come across, and I put them all into a book called Kenji's Workshop. 100 techniques that most modern woodworkers have never seen, with step-by-step photos and clear explanations you can actually follow in your shop. Scan the QR code on screen right now, or grab it from the first link in the description. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one.